So, if you've been with me for a while, you know that I have a pretty big soft spot for early 2010s brony media. That's basically all I talk about on here, so it's not hard to know. It was really only a matter of time before I dedicated a whole video to Friendship is Witchcraft. I've mentioned it a couple times, but it's such a pillar of brony fandom culture that it deserves its own discussion. Friendship is Witchcraft, or FIW, takes footage from the show My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, and redubs it with new voices, lines, and whole stories.
We just watched Gremlins in an episode of Star Trek and went straight to bed!
The series was really popular, with its original songs and offbeat humor. It even featured a now well-known internet personality. That's not me saying it's perfect or that everybody liked everything about it. If you know, you know. But if you don't, stick around, because today we're going to talk about the history and legacy of Friendship is Witchcraft. For this video, I'm going to be arranging my points into a numbered list. No particular reason for that, just thought I'd do it. Chapter 1. Abridged to the series. Friendship is Witchcraft was created by two friends, Jenny and Griffin. Both of them reportedly have backgrounds in improv comedy, and they put that to use writing original scripts and song lyrics for the show. Griffin would compose all the tunes, including an original score. Like I said in the intro, the show would take the footage from the actual My Little Pony cartoon and replace the dialogue to create something entirely new. For example, Jenny would voice most of the characters, and Griffin would do some minor roles like Princess Celestia.
It's so nice to see that you've actually made some friends for once.
This process of replacing dialogue in an animated show is usually called an abridged series. It's a big thing in the anime community, with popular ones like DBZ Abridged and Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged. Take the visuals and general story from an anime, replace the dialogue and make it funny, do some edits even to add visual gags, and there you go.
I am trying to talk to my friends!
Hey Vegeta, we're friends now, right?
Fuck off.
Obviously, it's a thing that's existed a long time before FIW. Though people like to call FIW an abridged series of My Little Pony, the team kinda rejects that statement. Jenny would say once that it's more like, quote, a bizarro universe version of Friendship is Magic, airing on an alternate universe version of the hub. I haven't seen that many abridged series, so I can't say for sure, but from what I've heard, FIW sort of goes against the conventions that a lot of them follow. You see, they're called an abridged series because they take the original episode and abridge it and make it short, adding humor as well. Instead of that, Witchcraft makes up its own story and doesn't follow the original. Whatever you want to call it, abridged or not, this thing ran for 9 proper episodes from 2011 to 2013. There were also various shorts, a little spin-off, and some other things that we'll be talking about later. If you go and watch the episodes now and look at when they were published, you'll notice that these are re-uploads. The originals were taken down by Hasbro due to copyright. This is a fate a few other brony creations suffered from, most famously Button's Adventures. FIW even had less ground to stand on than that. While it did take FIM and make it into something unique, which you could consider fair use, it still used enough footage from it to trigger Hasbro's copyright bots. The way I see it, Hasbro would strike down anything that could be confused for an official MLP product. Button's Adventures was so professional looking and spot on to the show that a kid could watch it and think it's real. Same with Fighting is Magic, the fan-made MLP fighting game. It looks like a real game that would be on Steam or Xbox Live Arcade. That whole statement about how Hasbro's copyright works probably isn't true, but I like to think that's the logic they were using. I mean, there's a reason that all these got taken down and Dusk's Dawn is still up. But back to FIW. What made it so beloved that people were willing to put it back up on YouTube to preserve? Chapter 2. The Humor. So, we know that the two writers have backgrounds in improv comedy. Apparently, they could have been lying in that Reddit thread, but if that's true, I can see it in how they wrote this thing. They have a kind of anything goes mentality when redubbing the episodes. I wouldn't call it LOL so random XD, but crazy stuff just kinda happens. Someone in the comments compared it to the Naked Gun movies, and I have to agree. They didn't go into this wanting to make a rich world with developed characters, they just wanted to tell stupid jokes. There is world building and continuity in the show, but that's all in service of the comedy. A lot of it comes from how far they can push this world and these characters to being absurd and messed up. Callbacks happen, but mostly when the footage lines up with something they did earlier, when it's convenient. The episodes here are scripted, but I get the feeling that they watched them and had a fun time seeing what parts they could take and use in the FIW version. Another comparison, it's pretty much like the Sonic real-time fandubs by Snapcube, but more dry, I'd say. I don't know. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend to understand all the subtle nuances of comedy. I can only say what I noticed about it. And even with that, humor is subjective. You could watch it and think it's the best thing ever, or think it's awful, or be like me where, yeah, I think it's pretty good. Not perfect. There are things I think aged pretty bad. Whenever they do super morbid stuff, like some innocuous cute thing will happen and they'll talk about death or some shocking subject that a cute pony would never bring up.
And now we're all going to die because of the parasprites, and it's Spike's fault.
What? Also, when someone does something and they say that exact thing,
Watch how far I can slide.
those jokes seem pretty easy to make. What I like is the more absurdist or downright stupid stuff. Characters will babble like idiots for no reason, have these weird fixations on things like Rarity's giant hats or Rainbow Dash saying her name over and over again. Whenever characters are mean out of nowhere, and all the other weird things they repeat, in the first episode they keep saying talk about eye candy with no context to it.
Talk about eye candy. Talk about eye candy. Talk about eye candy.
Later the crew would say that it's meant to make fun of unfunny running gags in cartoons. But context or not, I liked it, just because it's weird and they repeat it a lot. Yeah, it's that simple. For me at least. Part 3. Oh, look at us. Our characters are so malevolent and heartless. Maybe next we'll hear a new cheap catchphrase. What I think made FIW so enjoyable for the Brony audience was having the context of the original show to go off of. You basically need it if you want to understand half the jokes. Same with a lot of the in-fandom references, like the character Derpy Hooves being edited out altogether as a reference to her being censored. And plug the video. Describing it to you isn't doing it justice and would also be spoilers if you haven't seen the videos, so I'm just gonna go over some of the individual characters to get a sense of what they did with the show. Fluttershy, instead of being kind and caring for animals, is now an evil cult leader. Now ain't that funny, the nice one is evil. Even at the time, people complained about it, and I have to agree because it's not the best choice. A lot of people say that comedy is just something unexpected happening, and turning a nice character into an evil one is anything but. Applejack is a war criminal. Another thing that didn't age well, not that I think it's offensive, I couldn't care less, but committing war crimes as a joke is like 2018 Reddit humor. It would be like having a character in this unironically say heckin' doggo. Rarity was also in the war and has traumatic flashbacks. Rainbow Dash is just all around really dumb. She's my second favorite next to Twilight. Twilight is the best character, no contest. All the other main six are like off, but she's insane. I love her. She's this megalomaniacal, chronically online weirdo who does awful things to everyone, including Spike, who's the punching bag for all the other characters in this. It really is Twilight's world, and we're just all living in it. You've got other minor characters too. A lot of the kid characters are actually pretty much how they are in the show, except for Sweetie Belle, who's a robot.
Rarity loves to jump up and down. The chances of success are 100%.
Shining Armor is a corndog-loving radical surfer dude. Cadence is one of the only sane characters who plays off all the other ponies. Now Pinkie Pie, as you might know, Pinkie Pie starts off as a straight man character who plays off all the other ponies' crazy antics, but then people start accusing her of witchcraft and calling her a certain word. I'm not repeating it, nor am I playing the clips, but the intent was for it to be a big reference to the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Unfortunately, they didn't know that the terminology was offensive until later in the series. According to Jenny, later episodes they stopped saying it. I shouldn't speak on whether this means the series or anyone who worked on it should be cancelled. I think the reason it's such a big point of discussion when FIW is brought up is because Pinkie Pie has the two most popular songs, both of which unfortunately have that term in them. Chapter 4. Let's sing a catchy song that will get 1 million hits on YouTube. The music is one of the most enduring parts of FIW. Pretty much every episode has its own song. Some are parodies, some original. The original ones are so good. Pinkie Pie had the most popular ones, with the whole trilogy of catchy tunes. The Orphan Song, Pinkie's Brew, and the third one. Besides the obvious, they hold up well. Sweetie Bot has her own song, which is really underrated. You don't see a lot of people bring that one up. Twilight's song, where she sings about wanting to marry her brother, is way too good to be about what it's about. Like I said earlier, Twilight is insane. In episode 6, Princess Luna shows up, and she and Twi have a little back and forth number. There are a few questionable things in this series, but I never see people talking about Luna. She's supposed to be socially awkward, but I don't know what they were going for here. Separate from any of the episodes, AJ sings her own original song about the war. Despite what I said about the war crimes thing, I like this one. There are some parodies and other little things they do, like they'll switch out the lyrics to some of the show songs, and I think that's always really funny. In line with the rest of the series, they change it to be about something really dumb. You've also got the original score that replaces the usual FIM music. The main theme they use is catchy, and you've got to commend that they made most of their own music for this. Another tidbit was that, according to a Reddit AMA, Tally Hall was one of their inspirations for the soundtrack. Take that for what you will, but personally, I love Tally Hall, and the original songs really do give me a similar vibe. Witchcraft's music has gone from being a well-respected part of the series to being a popular part of Brony canon. Pinky's Brew was even referenced in the infamous Brony documentary. That and others would often appear on top Brony songs of the year lists. The fandom tribute, The Brony Polka by Animated James, would of course incorporate a few. The one song Pinkie Pie sings in episode 7 was trending on TikTok a few years back. Yeah, that was 2 years ago. It's crazy how time flies. Of course, FIW had more of an impact than just the music. Chapter 5, I ran out of FIW quotes to use for the points. Same with a lot of MLP parody series, the versions of the main 6 from FIW would lend themselves well to a lot of memes. Jokes from the show would become in-jokes in the MLP community, like Buy Some Apples, Eye Candy, of course, Pinkie Pie's Witchcraft, Twilight and Shining Armor's gross relationship, and Sweetie Belle being a robot. Sweetie Bot was such a fan favorite. She had fan art, animations, there's even a project where people are building a real-life Sweetie Bot. I'll leave a link in the description for the project because that's super cool. As popular as it was, not everybody enjoyed FIW. From my research, a lot of the negative feedback comes from people complaining about the lack of a consistent plot or character development. The show never tries to make you care about the characters or story, so I don't know where that's coming from. If people don't think it's funny, then they don't think it's funny, but criticizing for something for what it's actively not trying to do is confusing. There's this Brony analyst called Voice of Reason who notoriously didn't like FIW. In his first video, he literally yells about something that he didn't understand was a joke, and then made a follow-up where he quote-unquote corrects his mistakes, but just ends up arguing about how he's actually right, even when he went on the Dr. Wolf show, like any self-respecting Brony analyst. He talked about friendship as witchcraft instead of anything serious. That was a long time ago though. According to Jenny, when she visited BronyCon 2019, she and Voice of Reason made peace. They even took a pic together. Shows that time really does heal all wounds. Personally, my first exposure to FIW was a negative review by the mysterious Mr. Enter. If you don't know what his whole deal is, there's probably a few videos you can look up about it. It's too much to cover right now. Mr. Enter didn't like it either, and made a lot of the same points. Unfortunately, there's no record of he and Jenny having a pleasant chat at the last BronyCon. Speaking of, Chapter 6, The Jenny Nicholson-Shaped Elephant in the Room. Let's get it out of the way. Did you know Lady from YouTube plays Twilight in the Funny Pony dub? What? So yeah, Jenny from the FIW team is internet personality Jenny Nicholson. A lot of you may know her from her more recent YouTube videos, which I really like. It's often brought up how this respected internet person used to be in this old thing and how much of a surprise it is, but it wasn't kept a secret. I found out actually right before her big Brony expose. It took me a minute to figure out where I recognized the voices from. She really has a lot of range in this, doing all of the main 6 in certain episodes. And you know what? That's not to downplay Griffin Lewis's involvement. People need to give him more credit. He did all the music and wrote the whole thing with Jenny, so FIW, as we know it, wouldn't exist without the both of them. Griffin would later do more music, including some pretty popular stuff. You know Stay Calm, that one Five Nights at Freddy's song? Yeah, that was him. The later Griffin songs would be based on Bendy, Baldy, Hello Neighbor, all those guys, with him adopting the name Fandroid. The songs on here have a similar style to FIW, even if the subject matter is different. The only real experience I have with any of the Fandroid stuff was in middle school when a kid copy-pasted the lyrics to his Cuphead song into a Google Doc and said that they made it themselves. Yeah, middle school was weird. Griffinilla/Fandroid doesn't seem to be as active anymore. The last thing I heard was that he wanted to go in a new direction with his music. And if he wants to do that, all the more power to him. If you take Witchcraft into account, he's been making fandom music for about 10 years. I know I would want to do something else by that point. The general vibe I get from both people is that, FIW was in the past and hasn't aged well. I'm not going to directly argue against that since they made it, and obviously have improved both their crafts since then. In 2020, Jenny made this big video about the Brony fandom and her experiences in it and all that. Not only does she talk about FIW, but also about her views of the fandom in general. Her criticisms aren't new though. She's been subtly hinting at things like this since back in the FIW days. What do I mean by that? Part 7. Kimmy Sparkle, the internet's only Pegasister reviewer. Kimmy Sparkle was this character that was made up and posted onto the Sherklop Pones YouTube channel. That's what the FIW team called themselves. She was meant to be a parody of Brony analysis channels, like the Voice of Reason. Kimmy would get things wrong in her reviews, get mad at continuity errors that didn't exist, hate certain characters for no reason, go after the writers by name, all things that apparently the team had noticed about the Brony commentary scene. She had this whole thing about being a real nerd girl, and how all other Pegasisters were faking it because they wanted to fit in. There's also this one where she talks about how My Little Pony is a show for grown men that little kids can't understand. A lot of Kimmy's weird attitudes, obviously meant to poke fun at the fandom, would later be criticized by Jenny in her last BronyCon video. Kimmy is long gone, but she's still here in spirit. When the 2017 MLP movie came out, Jenny did a video not too different from the classic Kimmy Sparkle formula. And look at that! What's that poster? Oh my gosh. Chapter 8. Friendship is Witchcraft, The Lost Episodes. FIW's last proper episode was in August 2013. A few years later, they'd do 2 parts of an Equestria Girls fandub before ending it for good. 2011 to 2013 was a good run. They were there for the peak of the fandom, redoing episodes from the first 3 seasons, what I like to call the classic era of FIM. That being said, there was one script planned for a 10th FIW episode, You Smooze, You Lose. This one would have been about Discord and based on a Season 5 episode. Discord never really appeared in FIW, so we finally get to see what he would have been like in the show. I like the idea that instead of causing chaos like normal Discord, he does good things like pick up trash because this world is so insane. As for the rest of the episode, I don't know, it's just not the same. Besides his normalness, Discord isn't that interesting of a character. He has no real gimmick or anything, so it's not as fun as a Twilight or CMC episode. Also, the main thing is focused on the cult, which again, isn't really funny. I do think it's really funny that in FIW, the cult is trying to resurrect the Smooze, but this is the episode that the Smooze shows up in. You'd think it would be about that, but no, they just rename him and talk about it like nothing ever happened. If you don't want to watch the con footage of this episode, there's a fan-made version out there of what it would actually be like, which uses clips from FIM. A few years later, in 2019, we got a return to the world of Friendship is Witchcraft with Celestia's standalone adventure. This was actually part of another abridged MLP series. The channel Scooter Tricks had this choose-your-own-adventure style movie where you'd click on different video end cards to go around and get to the end of the story. In one of these, Pinkie Pie gets transported to the Witchcraft universe. The only character who talks here is Princess Celestia, and all the other characters are there. Now, you could call this a send-off, but I don't, since it's mostly Griffin just making fun of the series. But hey, we got to see Celestia again. It's a cute little crossover, and while not a proper ending, I think it fits with the series tone. And with that, Friendship is Witchcraft is over. Will it ever come back? I doubt it. Both the major players in it, like I've said, have moved on to other things. There doesn't seem to be any super big demand for it, and even if they did do more, would it even be good? It's been almost 10 years since the last real episode. There are other MLP abridged series and fandubs, but none accomplish the same out there tone that FIW does. Do I recommend it? Sure, why not? If you like screwball comedies, or stuff like the Sonic fandubs, I think it could be a real treat. My personal favorite is episode 4, but 8 and 9 are good too. Don't go into it expecting to care about any of the characters or story, and make sure you're familiar with MLP too, because it'll be lost on you if you don't. The best jokes are the ones that catch you off guard, so if you can, go in as blind as possible. I think Friendship is Witchcraft has aged better than people say. Some of it feels like a product of its time, but other things fit with today's sense of humor. It's not the best, and yeah, if you don't like it for whatever reason, I completely understand. There are things to not like about it. It's one of my personal favorites though, and will hold a special place in my heart. What are your thoughts on FIW? Tell me in the comments. I know either way people would be telling me, but it's genuinely something I want to find out. And while you're leaving that comment, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of my new videos or live streams. And feel free to follow me on my socials for whatever stuff I feel like posting. A special shout out to my Yak Tier supporters from Patreon. Jack Getchman, Paisley, Gunnar Clovis, Mavis Likes Bugs, I Hate Gabby Braun with a Burning Passion, Lori Scissors, Olive, SR Nano, Allison Madden, Alex Kincaid, Johnny Punchfist, Keaton Cryer, Cascadiarch, Bad Bessie, Damian, Booth Taste, Marshmallow, Zeflo, and Goose Nerd. Until next time, I'm Shunks, the internet's only Pegasister reviewer, and I hope your day is sparkles.